Joining me today on NYSE Floor Talk is Kevin Young. He is the Andrew W. Mellon Director of the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Kevin, it is fantastic to have you here.
Thanks for
joining
having me, Judy.
Amazing job ringing the bell this morning.
Thanks. It was, what a special moment.
Quite a way to celebrate Black History Month.
Yeah, it was really important for us to be here and celebrate. And we're really honored, as is the whole Smithsonian, being the first Smithsonian to be asked to ring the bell.
Now, Kevin, the museum is still fairly new. It opened in 2016, and it's already become one of the ultimate authorities on Black history and culture. So give me an overview of the museum's history and how it came to be.
Well, the museum's almost 8 years old, but in a way it's much older than that, because in 1915, Black veterans petitioned for a monument on the mall for their service and sacrifice. Black veterans of the Civil War on the 50th anniversary of that conflict ending. And so to be able 100 years later to build this monument to their sacrifice, but also to the history of African Americans, the tragedy, the triumph. We go and start from 1300, before the advent of modern slavery, and we go to the present day. And I think that's very important, because we talk a lot about living history in this current moment. How do we capture that? How do we talk about recent history and help people understand history is happening around us, and especially our young people, that they can make history?
Now, I mentioned it's Black History Month. So tell me, what role does the museum play in educating its visitors about Black history? And why is Black history so important?
It's so important, especially in this moment, and we see that with our attendance. We had 1.7 million people come to the museum last year, and we just celebrated our 10 millionth visitor last year as well. And so to see that crowd come back, especially after COVID, when we were closed and like much of the nation was mourning, you know, to be able to kind of still tell that story is so important, because I think it talks about reconciliation, it talks about healing, it talks about the long struggle to be here, but also that we're here together. And I see it every day in the museum, the way that people see themselves and each other. A quick story, I got off the elevator when I first was visiting with my son, and he's here today, which is really special. But we got off the elevator, and there was this pot, the same kind of pot that my grandmother cooked gumbo and delicious food from Southern Louisiana in, and to see it in the museum, you know, was such an important mirror for us. And you know, he got to taste some of that food, and it brought it back to us. And we also have a good cafe, so that also helps.
So now tell me, why did the museum choose the theme of African Americans in the arts?
Well, because Carter G. Woodson, who founded Black History Month and started as Negro History Week, his organization sets the tone and sets the theme. And so this year we're talking about African Americans in the arts, which is really special. And we really like to chime with that when we can. And it really thinks about Black creativity and the contributions of Black music and film, everything from writing, which I do as well, to you know, cinema is really special. And to be able to celebrate that and remind people of the music they enjoy every day and where it comes from is really special.
And what does this year's theme mean to you?
Well, personally, as a poet, I couldn't be happier, you know, but it's also a way to remind people about Black imagination, which I think is so important when we're talking about history. It's history and culture. And I like to think about how the ancestors imagined a new world, a better world for us all. And thinking about that, we have a show, for instance, called Afrofuturism up right now, which talks about the ways that Africans and African Americans, even enslaved African Americans, especially enslaved African Americans, imagine a better world, a new world. They had to imagine a future. And that was really important for them. And we've carried that into things like Sun Ra or Jimi Hendrix or the Mothership, which we have from Parliament Funkadelic upstairs. And in the show is a way to celebrate that continuity of imagination. And that's also celebrated in Black History Month this month.
Now, what do you hope your visitors take away from this year's Black History theme?
Well, I hope they take away a little bit of themselves and each other, and we get to see the ways that Black history is American history. We tell the American story through an African American lens, and that's really exciting to have people recognize that that story is so special and central, but it's also something they can find in our museum and find online in our searchable museum 365 days a year.
Now, you brought your son with you here today.
Yes.
Who were some of the other people that joined you today to ring the bell?
Oh, so many of our terrific staff are here. We also have some luminaries. Our board is here. we have some really important folks personally to me, but we also have descendants of some of the history we tell in the museum. We had a descendant from Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings, and to see that up close and to have someone from that here is so special, from that piece of history, but also a history that we don't always talk about and wrestle over and try to understand. And to know that is so close at hand, and living, as we talk about, living history is so important.
Well, Kevin, it's been wonderful to celebrate Black History Month with you here
Likewise.
today. Thanks for joining me on Floor Talk.
Thanks for having me.